Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jenny. Today's video is going to be a review and swatches of the e.l.f. The New Classics eyeshadow palette. I did go ahead and do the eye look. I didn't do a tutorial this time just because I wasn't really feeling like it, to be honest, but I will tell you what shades I used once I get to that point. So I am going to go ahead and just start with how I did this eye look today. First, I took the shade Cream all over the lid from lash line to brow bone just to kind of use as a base. I then took a mix of Uptown and Truffle in the outer corner as well as up into the crease kind of just haphazardly. I then took the Charmer shade all over the same places I took the other two, but then kind of just blended all of that together. I used a lot of that to kind of get that rosy tone. And then took the shade Muse in the outer corner and slightly up into the crease to darken that area. And then took Beloved and Cosmo on the inner half of the eye, and then took Noir to line. And then on the lower lash line, I took a mixture of these three here on most of the lash line, and then took Muse on the outer portion. And because I forgot to put anything on the inner corner, I am going to go ahead and take Glamour and just pop that on the inner corners for a little bit of added brightness. In this palette, you get 9 shimmers, 7 mattes, 1 satin, and 1 matte with glitter. And what's really nice about this palette is it's kind of warm and cool. You have some nice neutral browns, but you also have some cooler tones with some like nice cool rosy shades, and then you get these pops of green down here. I do think there's a nice selection of neutral and cool tones. I don't necessarily think this is a overly warm palette. You do have these which are more warm leaning, but I still think overall this is a more neutral cool palette. And I do like how it's kind of separated by like a more neutral warm and then a more cool colorful pop. It's not really color. This is the most colorful shade in the palette because it is green, but I do think that like these down here are some nice olivey tones. The quality of this palette has surprised me. It is really good quality. The mattes blend beautifully. They wear great throughout the day. The shimmers are really nice as well. They do apply better if you use a glitter glue or a shimmer glue, and they do wear a little longer through the day with that method. I personally don't mind them wearing off throughout the day. I do like how this looks now. It is a light shimmer. It's not a super bam in your face. If you do use a glitter glue, it does intensify the shimmers. I did not do that today. They do wear nicely throughout the day, but the shimmers do tend to fade a little more than the mattes do throughout the day. But overall, the intensity stays basically exactly where it is. Like I just applied this eyeshadow, but by the end of the day, it's gonna look almost exactly the same. Very little wear. It looks beautifully throughout the day. I personally haven't had any creasing issues, but I do always have a concealer or a shadow primer down. I have not worn it without those things, so I can't tell you how they wear without a primer or concealer as a base. I picked this up at Walmart for $14, which I do think is a tiny bit pricey for e.l.f. But as far as drugstore pricing goes, it is going up, unfortunately. And I do think that this is worth $14 if you're in the market for a neutral palette. Now, most people are not in the market for a neutral palette. Almost everyone has one. But if you are someone who is just starting out, if you're buying this for a niece or like a younger girl who's just starting out, I think this is a great quality palette, and I think that it is super perfect for those purposes. Did I need this palette? No, I did not. I have so many neutral palettes that it's crazy at this point, but I think the quality of this palette is absolutely amazing, and I did really enjoy the color scheme because while it is neutral, I don't have something like this where it's like mostly neutral cool. I do have a lot of warmer leaning palettes, so this is a nice refreshing palette in my opinion as far as neutrals go, because the market has been so saturated with warm tones that I think a neutral cool palette was a nice addition, especially in the drugstore. So I definitely do recommend this palette if you're in the market for something that looks like this. The quality is amazing, and I love e.l.f. I think e.l.f. is a great brand, especially if you're a beginner. Even if you're not a beginner, I just think that the quality has definitely went up in the past few years, and so I definitely recommend this. They also had a sister palette. I can't remember what it's called, but it is a rainbow palette, and I had to stop myself from buying that one too because I don't need a rainbow palette. But I think it's awesome that a rainbow palette is coming to the drugstore because you never see rainbow colors in the drugstore. So I definitely think that that is an awesome addition to your collection. If you wanted a neutral and a rainbow, then you're basically set as far as eyeshadows go if you bought both. But I sound like a broken record. I can't really think of anything else to say until we get into the swatches because I will kind of discuss the shades there. But overall, I think that the palette is great quality, and I definitely recommend it if this is something that draws you in and if you are in the market for a neutral eyeshadow palette. So now that I've told you how amazing the palette is, let's go ahead and start the swatches. I am going to go row by row. So in the first row we have Cream, which is the nice cream base. We then have Truffle, which is a warmer leaning like peachy brown. And then we have Darling, which is a nice, just typical warm leaning brown, really, really pretty. And then we have Muse, which is a really, really pretty, like almost rosy leaning chocolatey brown. It is gorgeous. It looks patchy in the swatch, but it is not patchy on the lids. Then we have Noir, which is a nice, just staple black. And while it is pigmented, I think it's an easier black to use because it's not super duper, just like bam, pigment. Right there, you can't move it. It is a nice buildable black. And then the first shimmer in the palette is Blanc, which is a really pretty shimmery white. So here is row 1. So now moving on to the second row, this first shade is the shade Uptown, and this one is the one that's more of a satin finish. It does have a tiny bit of a sheen to it, but it wears basically like a matte. And the next shade is Charmer, which is a really pretty dusty rose. Let me do a better swatch. Beautiful shade. And then we have Earth, which is a cool toned, like earthy brown is a good way to describe this shade. That was a horrible swatch, I apologize. But that is a gorgeous shade if you're going for the more cool toned, cool leaning eye look. And then we have Beloved, which is a really cool, almost duochromy pink. It's got like a pinkish, orangish shift to it. It's really, really pretty. And the next two are Gilded, which is this really pretty like greenish gold shade. And then Glamour, which is the icy kind of pink champagne shade. Here is the second row. And this palette is a more, I don't really know how to describe it. It's not a very pigmented palette, but they build up to be beautiful shadows. Like they're not super duper pigmented on swatches and things, but they apply gorgeously on the lids. Looking at these swatches, I feel like I'm just like, oh, these are not swatching well, but they apply beautifully. Please just trust me, they apply gorgeously on the eyes. And the last row, we have Black Cherry, which is a shimmery kind of rosy brown. And then we have Cosmo, which is a really pretty rose shimmer. And then we have Rose Gold, which is more of a copper in my opinion, but it is beautiful as well. Haven't used that one a lot just because that's not a shade I gravitate to. And then we have the shade Platinum. Let me swatch that better. Platinum is a really interesting color. It's kind of like a gunmetal gray. And then we have the shade Opulent, which is like a true gunmetal. Like it's like a super beautiful, has a little bit of a gold to it. That's a perfect smoky eye shade. I love it. And then this last shade is the only shade that I hate. And if you've been here a while, you probably know why. It is a matte black with shimmer in it. And once you blow the shimmer away, it's just a black. So to me, it's like a duplicate shade because when you're blending this in the crease or in the outer V or whatever you're doing with it, the glitter just goes away. So there's really no point in having the glitter in there. And so to me, it's like there's two blacks in this palette. So we could have done without that. They could have added another matte. They could have added like a nice pop of color, a teal or something, and then that could have been a really nice rounded palette. To me, that shade is just a dud. But here is the last row. So just to review, the swatches are not as great as they are applied to the eyes. The shadow quality is phenomenal for drugstore makeup. I definitely think e.l.f. has been stepping up their game. I definitely recommend this palette. It is $14 at Walmart, and I will have it linked down below for you to check it out if you're interested. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you found this review helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you would like to subscribe, please feel free, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.